I have a millennial kid. And so if I'm having a conversation, it's easier for me to say, well, what are your thoughts versus no, this is how I want it done, and you will do it that way. It doesn't go over easy. I'll talk about myself, but I know some leaders have talked about being in corporate meetings and their manager.
Welcome to D50 After Dark. I'm your host, Mickey Bennett, and in today's episode, we will be having one more conversation with past international director Monnica Rose. We will be discussing emotional emotional intelligence. Stay tuned for this conversation. Welcome back to D50 After Dark, Monnica.
Thank you, Mickey. Happy to be here.
Now, we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence, EQ, which is, I guess, an alternative to IQ. And it's something that some of us have heard about, but we don't really know what it is. So start us off with what the heck is emotional intelligence?
I would say just the ability to recognize on your own how you respond emotionally to situations that come across your way, and then how who you're interacting with might have an emotion that when you collaborate with someone, how they respond or how you can work together in that state. So it's being really smart on paying attention to the things that make you feel happy or the things that make you feel not so happy and how you're responding.
Okay, so is emotional intelligence, I compared it to IQ, but is there a score involved? Do you have like an an EQ score of 100 or something like that, or does it not work that? It's not a score.
Not at all. Not at all. No, the having conversations, I'll use emotional intelligence when I talk about conflict resolution. And in that, the things that I present out, let's say, are you happy? Are you upset? Or ask rhetorical questions that ask, if you're at dinner and you specifically ask for your order to be made a certain way and your plate is delivered to you in a different way, what do? Do you raise your hand and ask for a substitution? Do you let someone know? Or do you storm and make a big theatrical showing of your disapproval of how your food came? Or if you were in a different situation where something didn't go your way, how did you respond? Did you just make the very best you could with the situation? Or did you make a show with it? It just depends.
So would it be accurate to say emotional intelligence is not a score, but it's a process of reflecting and learning on how your emotions show up in different situations and how they affect your words and actions?
Yes, I would agree. No score, but to your latter point, yes. And the difference, though, sometimes in the emotional intelligence whole realm, you might experience all different phases of it, happy, sad, or any emotion at some point. So you're not always on the highest EQ or the highest emotional intelligence. And there's different things that I've learned just reading some of the materials, that is a better time to have a conversation with someone versus a lower emotional intelligence where, say, let's go back to the example of your dinner not ordered correctly and maybe it was overcooked or the food was bad or something, that you know that it's not the right time to do certain things, and you might not, you may decide just to do nothing. So it's
Yeah.
an evolving state. Every day could be a different day.
So I guess the obvious application would be conflicts. And I know you're an expert in conflict resolution. And in the example you gave, could be a potential conflict where you maybe argue with the waiter, or you're upset about your order, or you avoid the conflict and you don't say anything. But emotional intelligence applies to a lot of other scenarios that aren't necessarily conflict. For example, when I talk to interesting people like you on the podcast, I get excited, I get happy, and we talk maybe longer than intended, and the episodes run long. And emotional intelligence might be useful in me understanding respond with so much joy, and maybe lose control of my actions, and I can be aware of that, and that can help me meet the targeted time. Just to give another hypothetical that's different than conflict.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, very cool. I'm getting it. So emotional intelligence. Now this is useful in leadership development.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say that in leadership development, it will take, sometimes you're working with a team that maybe is a large team or a smaller team, but usually, if we separate it with teams, you have all different types, you have a diversity on the team. And usually the one who is, every good team needs a disruptor. And usually in that disruptive moment, the leader has to focus on what the goals are. So it takes someone with a strong IQ, or maybe IQ and EQ in this situation, to manage through that and to be able to look at the goals, lay out your projects, and work together as a team, and realize that that disruptor is there for a reason, because it helps it helps titrate to a better result that the team may need to deliver on. So you have to be ready. If you are at a low EQ that says, okay, I'm tired, I stayed up late, I can't get out of bed, it doesn't help with your focus when you're going into a team meeting. So if you've got something big that you need to do, that, and you know that you're sluggish that day, that might be a day to cancel that meeting so that you could be your very best.
I see. And so that awareness of your emotional state is part of the emotional intelligence process to understand that you're maybe not set up to perform, and to implement strategies to have those key actions or meetings happen at another time where your emotions are more conducive to the results you want.
Right. And as far as communicating, usually sometimes the best conversations happen when, you mentioned, if you're happy, you've got a great conversation to happen, because organically you're going to talk with excitement, and you're going to ask the person, not how are you doing today, but let me know what your status is on your project. Or do you have any updates that you want to share around the team? And communicating that in a way. If you're not necessarily ready to have that conversation, the words can come out and they may not be nice. So sometimes we need to filter and know. There's different techniques that we can do as leaders when we're having those conversations, when communicating with others, even if you're doing a one-on-one. Now, one-on-one conversations might be ready only, for feedback, for maybe candid conversations, and that's okay. You just want to, at that point, look at the receptor and understand if they are in a receiving mode to get that information. Because if you're talking and it's going in one ear and coming out of the other, because the word choice that you use is not the one that will stick with the person, then that's another thing. And I'll just share on my own. I'll take a personal story and talk about. I have a millennial kid. And so if I'm having a conversation, it's easier for me to say, well, what are your thoughts, versus, no, this is how I want it done, and you will do it that way. It doesn't go over easy. I'll talk about myself, but I know some leaders have talked about being in corporate meetings and their manager is using unbecoming language, and they're using words that are, I would call, being strongholded, or being uh, just not considered as an individual. I'll put it that way. So we can do different things in communication where we can manage that. And that's what's so helpful in leadership aspects. You want those leaders that can have those good conversations, and sometimes they may have a bad day, and that might be an opportunity to have them give some grace. So I don't know. It's a dynamic environment. It's always changing.
Yeah, I can see it. It's pretty clear that we want leaders that have emotional intelligence. For example, conflicts come up in business and organizations and communities, and we want our leaders to be able to address the conflict without like raising their voice or saying things that will be regretted later and having feelings be hurt. We want them to have the emotional intelligence not to communicate through anger, and then at the same time, we want them to not avoid the conflicts altogether. Both of which require emotional intelligence to find that middle road and deal with the conflict in a fair and direct way. But how do we develop our leaders to have that skill? Are there like practices to do? Are there exercises? Like, how do we go about developing our leaders with this skill?
In one of the sessions I facilitated as a region advisor, and I've done this after I've gotten out of that role in training our district, our council members, there's a little clip that shows that it displays a scenario that talks about the leader and how they are talking to a subordinate. And we show the film, and then we open it up for conversation and ask, what did you think about this? So you're actually having a dialogue around an hypothetical conflict, because we hopefully won't have any of those in our district or any district around the world. But if you have a chance to talk about it and see maybe whose responsibility is what, and can you just talk about it. I would just ask a few more questions, but just have a conversation. And you show different scenarios like that. It brings it to the forefront of people's minds that we need to be kind and courteous in our undertakings, because we all have a job to do. So that's one of the ways that we can get it out. But for training on it, really the leadership aspect of working together with people is actually working together with people. And when you feel a certain way, say something. And you can just say, hey, I noticed, Mickey, we worked together the other day and something seemed to bother you. Was it something I said, or were you just having a bad day? And that just opens the door for the conversation, because I can
Mhm.
come in with my conflict resolution head and say, I felt that maybe something wasn't just right when we worked together 2 weeks ago on a particular project, because I asked a question and it didn't seem like we really connected. So what we just did in that process was the person said, I feel. And
Mhm.
then they shared it with the person that they had the emotion related to, which was an internal conflict for me, for that
Mhm.
person that actually said something. And in those two steps, what was created was an opportunity for a conversation. Just like the clip that I showed gave the audience something, they felt a certain way. But then going through the process, if you have the internal cue that you need to say something, then it's on you to bring that conversation. And just those two steps is to open the door, and hopefully you can have a dialogue after that moment.
Yeah, so through having these conversations with people is one of the ways in which you'll train to you know, I mean, for one thing, what you described is a great way for dealing with conflict, right? You use I statements and have those conversations one on one and listen to what they have to say about it. But that's also a way to develop your emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
Now, I haven't read, I know there's a lot of literature out there on emotional intelligence. There's trainings like you experienced in with the regional advisors and everything. And there's a lot of books out there to read. And I haven't read the literature, but as you were talking, I imagine one thing you could do is keep a sort of journal, and when you have like a business meeting that's notable for some reason, afterwards you could write about like what happened, what you felt, and how you think your feelings affected your actions and what you said. And that type of self-reflection would help you to develop awareness.
Exactly. Exactly. I've journaled, but I've not taken my experiences and wrote them down, but that's a good thing. I mentally, though, however, mentally say if I experience a situation and I left with some feelings, whether or not I had one more thing to say, or I wish I would have done this, you know, I just mentally register that in my head. So what it's doing is the event occurred, I felt this way, so that when I see that elephant walking to me again, then I know,
Mhm.
okay, I either need to pause or retreat, or I have gone and developed a skill to help me manage that situation. Good way to put that. I like that journaling aspect. But yes,
Yeah.
that's a way to do that.
So to kind of bring this back home to Toastmasters, is Toastmasters an opportunity to develop our emotional intelligence?
There must be in level 3, with the plethora of electives, there must be something that will help us. There's a path on strategic relationships that I think, may talk about communicating with a strong audience or a conflicting audience. I know they had some sessions like that, but maybe something in our plans is available. I'm sure there is.
I feel like there's a project on emotional intelligence that I've come across in Pathways. I'll have to go look at it. I know there's like your leadership style and your communication style. I think there's one on emotional intelligence actually, but kind of more broadly, the practice of communicating in different ways through speeches, through table topics, through meeting roles, being a club officer and dealing with, maybe sometimes a little conflict in the club and learning how to those the experience is inevitably going to develop some awareness of your emotions and how it affects your leadership.
Yes. And I think the High Performance Leadership Project is an excellent example of one that will encourage you to build, because this is one where you're delegating a lot of the vision that you have in the project that you want to accomplish. So it gives you all of the components of building a team, delegating, communicating, and hopefully you've picked someone that will give you the counterpoint to help you grow in wherever you want to grow. But I think that High Performance Leadership Project is one that sometimes our members take pretty lightly. But I want to encourage us all to continue to grow and find the stronger teams that will pull the most out of you to let you grow even further.
I think that's a great point. That's a great point because for those of you who haven't done your high performance leadership project yet, or HPL, it's a project that's too big for you to do on your own, that you're going to need a team. And you have, if it's still the way I remember it, you have two teams. You have your like advisory or mentor team, and those are people who you trust to give you guidance on your leadership, and you present to them what your plan is, and you talk to them, and they give you feedback and advice. Basically, the evaluators of your project from a certain perspective. And you have your action team, like the people that are going to help you accomplish the project and for whom you serve as a leader to them. And so having those two teams and going back and forth between the two as the project evolves, it sounds like an amazing opportunity to develop emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you mentioned previously that you're doing an HPL for your historian role.
Yes.
Yeah. So how's that going? You already have your team set up or
Oh, yes. The team is already set up and I'm on the last component. I sent out my evaluation, my 360 evaluation to all of the members of the committee. The deadline I gave was, I think it's ending in the next 2 days. So I'll look to see what type of feedback that I've gotten for on my 360. And I'll tell you, the very first time that I did a 360 evaluation, I was on pins and needles. I wanted to bite my nails, and I was so fearful that I was going to get some bad feedback. And it was all beautiful. And I had one person that gave me very candid feedback, but it was still helpful. So all this is all in my mindset, all in how I'm wrapped and warped imperfectly. I want to make sure that I'm the very best that I can be. So I'll look to see what feedback that I have. And at that point, I can submit my DTM application because that was the last component that I needed. The
for
HPL,
DTM number 4?
yeah, yeah. The HPL is pretty much once I get that feedback done, then I can finish up.
Well, on that note, you're almost at 20 years of Toastmasters and you're about to complete DTM number 4. Is it It's obviously worth it to achieve the status of distinguished Toastmaster. I recommend all of our listeners do it if you haven't already. Is is it really worth it to do it a second, third, fourth time?
Okay, I'll give you two answers. The I've you have to serve a term for district leadership service to get your to get a DTM. So I was an area governor, division governor, the club growth director, and then district director. So I have 4 years of district leader service. I could have just stopped at one, but what I learned with each Distinguished Toastmaster Award, each high performance leadership project, I went from something I was so afraid to do. We were a co-leaders for that project, for the HPL project. And with that one, I said to myself, I wanted something that would stretch me even further. And each HPL had increasingly difficulty of educational learnings and stressors to help me be as strong as I could be. So I'm building my mental acumen, I'm building my leadership experiences and putting myself at the forefront of always speaking. And that's what helps me grow. I mean, it's like a glutton for punishment almost a little bit, but I don't take the easy way out. I've never been one to cut corners. So I want to make sure that I give myself as a robust experience as I possibly can.
Yeah, I think some of us who accomplish DTM, if we don't set a big goal for what's next, whether it be another DTM award or winning district speech contest or something big to work towards, we're just going to coast and we'll plateau in our skill levels. But working towards some other goal, whether it be a DTM or something else, keeps us motivated to push ourselves and improve ourselves.
Yes. And this is analogous to giving speeches and not getting credit for the speeches. So if I'm doing the work, I might as well get the credit.
Might as well get the credit and use the resources that are there to give you the structure for improving and reflecting on what you're accomplishing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Monica, do you have anything else to share with our audience about emotional intelligence or any other topic before we leave?
Yes, I have one more, actually two. One is to thank you for this opportunity. And the other one is to thank all of those who have mentored me along the way, because I didn't get here by myself. I asked, I stepped forward because I know I can't do this alone. So we have to have help. And I thank those people who have mentored me for over 20 years. I am so glad that they are still serving as Toastmasters and developing others. And that's what my goal is today. And from this day on, to continue to do that, grow and learn and pay it forward. So thank you, Mickey. Thank you for what you do.
And thank you so much for joining us, Monnica. I've so enjoyed our conversations. And until the next time we meet or have you on the show, thank you and good night to you. And to our listeners, thank you for listening in on our conversation. Our next guest will be past District Director Gaurav Shaker. So looking forward to talking to Gaurav. And thank you again, Monnica. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.